She worked the night shift because it was quieter, because fewer eyes meant fewer questions. The hospital corridors after midnight smelled of disinfectant and tired hope. Nurse Elena Ward moved through them with practiced gentleness, shoes whispering, hands steady, heart always braced. She had learned long ago how to carry other people's pain without letting it show. Or so she believed. Captain Thomas Hayes lay in room 417, the kind of patient people lowered their voices around. Military posture, even unconscious, scars that told stories without speaking. He had been brought in after a training accident that no one would fully explain. Elena read the chart twice her first night, then once more, as if repetition might reveal a hidden truth. Severe internal injuries. Extended coma. No visitors except one woman who came on Sundays and cried into the sheets. Elena checked his vitals every hour. The machines sang their soft, relentless songs. Sometimes she imagined he could hear them, that the rhythm anchored him to this side of whatever dark water he floated on. She spoke to him while she worked. Not encouragement. Just ordinary things. The weather. The cafeteria coffee. A bird she had seen perched on the ambulance bay light. She spoke because silence felt like abandonment. Her life outside the hospital was a small rented apartment and a cat that slept in the sink. She had no family left who called. There were reasons for that. Names she no longer answered to. A past folded carefully, pressed flat, hidden between the pages of who she had become. She believed in clean slates the way some people believed in God. With quiet faith. With fear. On the fourth night, Captain Hayes moved. Just a finger, barely a tremor. Elena froze, breath caught halfway. She counted his breaths, checked the monitor, told herself not to imagine miracles. Still, her chest ached with something like hope. She reported it, of course. She always followed procedure. Integrity was a habit now, practiced daily, like washing hands. Weeks passed. Hayes did not wake, but he lingered closer to the surface. Elena learned the geography of his face. The way his brow tightened when alarms sounded down the hall. The faint scar near his ear, pale as a memory. She found herself lingering longer in his room, listening, as if he might speak through the walls of his skull. One morning, two men in plain suits appeared at the nurse's station. They did not belong to the hospital. Their shoes were too clean. Their eyes too alert. Elena felt them before she saw them, a tightening behind her ribs. The taller one asked for her by name. He pronounced it carefully, like it mattered. They said they were from the FBI. They said it softly, almost apologetically. Other nurses glanced over, curious, then quickly away. Elena nodded. She followed them to an empty consultation room that smelled of old coffee and lemon wipes. She Saturday. Folded her hands. Waited. They asked about Captain Hayes. About her duties. About what she had observed. Their questions were precise, surgical. She answered truthfully, feeling the room tilt slightly with each word. Then the shorter man asked a different question, one that had nothing to do with the hospital. He asked if she had ever lived under another name. The silence stretched. Elena felt her pulse in her throat. She thought of the apartment. The cat. The careful life. She did not deny it. She did not confirm it. She simply breathed. The taller man slid a photograph across the table. A younger woman stared back, eyes harder, hair darker, standing beside a uniformed officer Elena had once loved and lost. The past unfolded, creased and unavoidable. They were not accusing. That was almost worse. They were searching. Captain Hayes, they said, had been involved in something classified, something unfinished. They believed she might understand why he had chosen her hospital, her ward. Why he had asked for her by name before the accident, when no one thought he would survive. Elena left the room with legs that barely held her. She returned to 417 and stood by Hayes's bed. The machines hummed. She touched his wrist, felt the faint, stubborn life there. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to be invisible. Instead, she felt the weight of old promises pressing down, promises she had never spoken aloud. She remembered the night years ago when she had learned how quickly a life could narrow. A siren. A door kicked open. Papers scattered like frightened birds. She had run then, not from guilt, but from the certainty that staying would destroy everyone she loved. Reinvention had been survival. Nursing had been penance. She had told herself that tending bodies was enough, that mending strangers could balance the scale. Now the scale tipped again. Elena pulled a chair closer and sat, listening to Hayes breathe. She wondered if he recognized her voice in whatever half-lit place he rested. If he had chosen her because she was safe, or because she was already broken in the right way. The thought hurt more than accusation. She did not speak now. Words felt dangerous. Footsteps passed in the hall. A cart rattled. Somewhere a monitor alarmed and was silenced. Life continued, indifferent. Elena closed her eyes and rested her forehead against the bedrail. She felt very small and very old. When she opened them, Hayes's fingers lay still, his face unchanged. Yet the room felt altered, as if something invisible had entered and refused to leave. She stayed until her shift ended, until the light was full and unforgiving. She charted carefully, washed her hands, did everything right. At the door, she looked back once more. The man in the bed did not move. But Elena understood, with a clarity that stole her breath, that whatever he woke to, she would no longer be just the nurse he needed. The hospital changed its sound when the sun came up. The night's softness drained away, replaced by clatter, voices, urgency sharpened by daylight. Elena felt it as she walked back in that evening, badge heavy against her chest. She had slept badly, dreams splintered and thin. Faces from old years pressed too close. Doors she had sealed began to breathe. Room 417 waited. Captain Hayes remained suspended in the same narrow margin between here and not. Elena checked his vitals with deliberate calm. Numbers behaved. Machines obeyed. Her hands remembered their work even when her mind strayed. She noticed a bruise blooming along his forearm, yellowed at the edges. Someone else had been there. She told herself it meant nothing. The men from the FBI did not return that night. Their absence felt louder than their presence. Elena imagined them everywhere anyway. In reflections. In pauses. She spoke to Hayes again, quietly, about nothing. The rain beginning outside. The way the windows rattled. She did not speak about names or photographs or the past pressing its thumb into her spine. On the third evening after their visit, Hayes opened his eyes. Not fully. A slit of awareness, unfocused, struggling. Elena felt it before she saw it, a shift in the room's gravity. She leaned close, breath held, said his name once. His lips moved. No sound came. Tears stung her eyes, unwelcome and sharp. She steadied herself. This was her job. This was always her job. He drifted back under, but something had changed. He followed her with his eyes when she moved. His fingers flexed when she adjusted the blanket. Elena charted everything. She followed every rule. Still, she felt the quiet accusation of her own pulse. She had not chosen this moment, but it had chosen her. The woman who visited on Sundays arrived on a Tuesday instead. She stood small at the foot of the bed, hands twisted together. Hayes's sister, Elena remembered now. Grief had thinned her, made her careful. Elena watched from the doorway as she spoke to him, voice trembling, promising to wait. Elena felt like an intruder in a room she had earned. Later, in the supply closet, Elena pressed her forehead against the cool metal shelf and breathed. She thought of the photograph again. The other woman she had been. The man beside her, dead now, his faith in her absolute. She had believed then that loyalty could save them. It had not. She had learned instead how survival asks for pieces of you, and never gives them back. The FBI returned quietly. One man this time. He stood in the hall, letting orderlies pass, letting the world continue. He asked if Hayes had regained consciousness. Elena said yes. She watched his eyes sharpen. He asked if Hayes had said anything. Elena said no. Both statements were true. Both felt incomplete. That night, Hayes woke fully. Pain etched his face, raw and human. Elena sat with him, adjusted the bed, offered water. He drank with difficulty. His eyes found hers and held. Recognition flickered, fragile as a match. He did not smile. Neither did she. "You came," he whispered. His voice scraped the air. "Yes," she said, because it was easier than anything else. Silence settled. He breathed. She listened. Finally, he said her old name. Softly. Like an apology. Elena closed her eyes. The room seemed to shrink until it could barely contain them. I needed someone who knew how to disappear, he said. Someone who would still come back. Elena felt the truth of it like a bruise touched too soon. She thought of all the careful distance she had built, all the nights she had chosen quiet over safety. She had believed she was done being useful in dangerous ways. She had been wrong. She told him he needed rest. She told him help was coming. She did not tell him that help was already here, waiting with clean shoes and patient eyes. When she left the room, she did not look back. She walked to the locker room and sat, hands shaking, as the weight of what he had asked settled in. Outside, dawn crept up again, indifferent and pale. Elena understood then that nursing had never been her disguise. It had been her truth. Caring had always cost her. It always would. And now, once more, it was asking for everything she had left. Captain Hayes improved the way storms improve, unevenly, without warning. One morning he could sit up, knuckles white around the rails. The next he slept through alarms and voices, mouth open, breath shallow. Elena tracked him through it all, her attention precise, almost fierce. She learned his pain rhythms, the hours when memory leaked back in and left him shaken. She stayed close during those times, not speaking unless he did, because words sometimes made it worse. The FBI man began appearing regularly, always polite, always just outside the room. He spoke with doctors, with administrators, with anyone who would answer. He never pressed Elena again. That restraint unnerved her more than pressure would have. It suggested patience, time, confidence that whatever was coming would arrive on its own. Hayes spoke little. When he did, it was carefully, as if every sentence carried weight he could not afford to drop. He asked about the weather, about the nurses on other floors. He did not ask about what came after. Elena did not offer it. They existed in a narrow present, held together by routine and pain medication and the hum of machines that never slept. One evening, during a lull thick with antiseptic and late coffee, Hayes asked her why she had stayed. The question landed softly but cut deep. Elena adjusted his buying time. She thought of the years she had spent running, of the silence she had learned to cultivate. Finally, she said she believed in finishing what she started. It was not the whole truth. It was close enough to bruise. He nodded, eyes closed, as if that answered something he had been carrying longer than his injuries. I hoped you would, he said. Not gratitude. Something heavier. The sister stopped coming. No explanation. Just absence. Elena imagined the exhaustion that must have finally claimed her, the way grief erodes even devotion. She left messages that went unanswered. Hayes did not ask. He watched the door sometimes, as if listening for a sound he no longer trusted to arrive. Elena's own life thinned. She stopped going straight home, lingered in the hospital cafeteria long after her shift ended. The apartment felt foreign now, too quiet. The cat slept through her absences, forgiving but distant. She avoided mirrors. The woman she saw there felt provisional, as if she might be taken back at any moment. One night, Hayes reached for her hand. Not urgently. Just contact, brief and careful. Elena let him hold it. She felt the heat of his skin, the tremor he could not control. It frightened her how natural it felt, how quickly her body remembered the shape of offering comfort without reservation. She withdrew gently, apologizing for nothing in particular. The FBI man waited at the nurse's station when her shift ended. He asked if they could talk. They stood near a window overlooking the parking lot, headlights sliding past like slow comets. He told her that Hayes had been part of an operation that had gone wrong. That names were missing. That time was running out. He did not threaten. He did not beg. He told her he understood why she had built a new life. He told her he would not stop her from keeping it, if she helped them finish this. Elena listened. She thought of Hayes's eyes when he spoke her old name, of the way he watched doors. She asked what helping meant. The man said it meant being present. It meant listening. It meant remembering things she had tried very hard to forget. He said it gently, like an apology he had practiced. Back in room 417, Hayes slept. Elena sat and watched his chest rise and fall. She felt the familiar calculation begin, the old instinct to measure loss against survival. She had believed once that love could be compartmentalized, that duty could be divided cleanly. Sitting there, she knew that belief had been a kindness she could no longer afford. When Hayes woke, she told him they had come back. He did not seem surprised. He closed his eyes and nodded, once. "I didn't want to drag you into it," he said. "But I couldn't do it alone." Elena did not answer. She stood and adjusted the curtain, letting in a thin band of dawn. The light caught the scar near his ear, made it almost disappear. She felt something settle in her chest, heavy and final. Not resolve. Acceptance. The quiet knowledge that some stories do not end, they only change hands. She stayed until the light was full. When she left, she did not know if she would return as a nurse, or as something else entirely. The door closed behind her with a sound too soft to mark the moment. Elena returned to the hospital on a morning she was not scheduled to work. The badge still opened the door. That small mercy almost undid her. She walked the corridors slowly, as if speed might shatter something fragile she carried inside. The hospital smelled the same. It always would. She wondered if that constancy was comfort or warning. Room 417 had been stripped of its machines. Captain Hayes sat upright, pale but awake, a folded blanket across his legs. He looked smaller without the apparatus that had defined him. More human. He smiled when he saw her, then seemed to reconsider, the expression softening into something quieter. Relief without triumph. They spoke little. Words felt unnecessary now, almost intrusive. Elena, Saturday. Hayes breathed. Outside the window, a construction crew drilled into concrete, the sound distant and relentless. Time asserting itself. The FBI man arrived afternoon. Papers were signed. Questions were asked. Hayes answered what he could, his voice steady, careful. Elena watched from the corner, noticing how often his eyes flicked toward her, not for reassurance, but for permission. She gave none. She simply stayed. That was all she had promised. When it was over, the man thanked her. Not formally. Not officially. He said her name, the one she used now, and then the one she had buried. He said both with the same respect. He left without asking anything more. The door closed. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. Hayes reached for the water glass. His hand shook. Elena steadied it without thinking. Their fingers touched. She felt the echo of old reflexes, the urge to pull away before attachment could set its hook. She did not move. Neither did he. The moment passed on its own. "I'm being transferred," he said eventually. "Rehab. Somewhere quiet." She nodded. She had known this was coming. Endings always arrived looking ordinary. "You'll heal," she said. It sounded like a statement. It was a hope. He studied her face, as if committing it to memory. "You don't have to come back," he said. "You've done enough." The words landed gently, but they hollowed something out in her. Enough. She thought of all the years she had measured herself by usefulness, by how much she could carry without breaking. She realized she did not know who she was without that measure. "I know," she said. And she did. They sat until afternoon light slanted across the floor. Elena stood first. She smoothed the blanket, a habit she would have to unlearn. She did not say goodbye. Neither did he. Goodbyes pretended to be final. This felt unfinished in a way that had nothing to do with continuation. In the hallway, she removed her badge and placed it in the pocket of her coat. The metal was warm from her skin. She walked past the nurse's station without stopping. No one called after her. The hospital absorbed her absence without comment. Outside, the air was sharp, clean. Elena breathed deeply, as if for the first time. She did not know where she would go next. The apartment waited, the cat, the quiet. Perhaps something else. For now, she stood and let the uncertainty wash over her, cold and bracing. Back in room 417, Hayes lay back against the pillows. He closed his eyes. For the first time in months, the room was empty of watchers. He felt the ache of healing settle in, slow and persistent. He thought of the woman who had sat beside him when silence was the only honest thing. He did not know if he would see her again. He knew only that she had changed the shape of his survival. The light shifted. Somewhere, a door closed. Life moved on, indifferent and exacting. Elena walked away. Hayes rested. Between them stretched a quiet space where something true had lived, briefly, and left no mark anyone else could see.